my journey to hellfire. I was eager to be at the place the angel was to take me. Meanwhile, so many people were hurriedly journeying down the valley, and the road became darker and darker as we moved down. After a comparatively 7-minute journey, ahead, a dull gray bank of cloud began to pile up in our front, and there was no light enough to see the people on the track, the gate of hell. After this door, you will see the abode of the lost souls. These are the souls of those who were careless about their final end when they were in the world, said the angel. But I'm hearing some horrible noise of crying down the dale already, I questioned. Yes, that is where I'm taking you too, replied the angel. When I heard this, I became afraid again. Some people you don't expect are there. The abyss has become considerably enlarged in more recent times, that in every split of second, hundreds of souls rush into it. He added, Isaiah 5:14. Therefore, hell hath enlarged herself, and opened her mouth without measure, and their glory, and their multitude, and their pomp. And he that rejoiceth shall descend into it. But not so many people in the world get as much awakened to this truth as they are conscious of the driving force of the trends of civilization, I confirmed. Yes, you are right, Alan. This is so because, at present, 80% of the preachers in the world are doing their preaching for profit, making, and for gain of money, seed sowing, and donations, for financial sponsorship, seed sowing, and donations in order to keep the online ministry daily updates alive and spiritually active. Click here, pitifully enough. They have so much spread their materialistic gospel in every city of the world to such a large extent that millions of people now have the feeling that materialism is synonymous with salvation and godliness. They are keen to find more Bible references to defend the preaching of prosperity with less effort to put the lost rich on the narrow way, answered. Lake of fire. As we advanced, the big iron gate before us opened on its own accord, and we passed. We entered this large space where the hell is. Hellfire is vast and restless. As it emits heat beyond measures, so its victims roll up and down, gnashing their teeth in the brutal flame. To see the other end of hell from the entrance gate is impossible. The noise of horror and a scream of pain from the people who are more than the world population is continual, for in no earthly empire was so large a population subject to a single emperor and a body of law as the people in hell are subject to the flame of fire and the das and dan teas of the fallen angels inside it. My interview with damn soul. So hell is as terrible as this. Who can tell? I exclaimed with trembling. That's why you must go back and tell everybody to repent and avoid, replied the angel. Whatever is revealed to you here, take it, go back to the world, and tell it. He emphasized. After this statement, the angel disappeared, and I became stationary in that point. Friends, the human limitation will, in no doubt, hinder me from being able to describe hell as vividly as I saw it, no matter how I try. The fire of hell was as thick as a heavy cloud, and rolled on its crest like a raging sea from its unknown depth to its immeasurable height. Hidden away in its flame were people of different races and languages, whose sins escaped discovery in the world but became open scandals in the record above. There was neither class distinction nor racial prejudice in hell, because teenagers, young people, and the aged were packed together inside it. The terror of the furnace was against them for anger. As the fire kept rolling from its far depth, their cry of sorrow and call for help reached crescendo. As they came up in its troublous tide, so they sank down 1,000 feet deep again, that for the next 30 or 40 minutes they were buried under this heavy flame, gnashing of teeth in hell. Darkness, instead of a ray of hope, hung on their brows. They gnashed their teeth in absolute extremities. Friends, no mortal man can explain the horror of eternal burning and the hopeless state of the lost. Not even in a token but rather in large extent, is the theme of struggle prominent in hell. This is unlike the struggle for freedom an apprentice daily dreams of, nor the other a Democrat counts as being the best for humanity. The struggle for escape. This is what I mean. The demons of torment. In one of the scenes I witnessed, I saw one of the fallen demons some meters away, who presumably appeared to have been assigned the most callous and cruel duty. His visage was of angry look. His voice was husky. His command was masterful. His fury was ignited whenever the abyss happened to quake, such that veinous network of his forehead did budge out, and his countenance wore mercilessness and vengeance. Index of his many years of heartless service in that region of hell was reflective not only in his skin, but in the whole of his teeth that had turned black completely. Besides, his 2 feet up to somewhere above his ankles were buried away in the heap of soot that had gradually fallen off his skin and wings over the years. Like when a tree sheds off her leaves in autumn, I couldn't view him beyond his knees, neither know the number of his toes. But in one of the glances I cast on his upper region, I discovered that there were more than 5 fingers in each of his hands. One finger was like a chewing stick in length and as thick as a graduation scroll, while each of his arms was weaved around by a bundle of muscles, such as is never in possession by any world heavyweight lifter in history. Demon in hell, with a spear he stood rigidly in a point and was duty-bound to pierce the newcomers with a sharp and hot iron dagger in his immortal mark of welcome into the lasting sorrow on every new person just arriving. From this sight, the victims strove and struggled violently to escape, panting and shivering before the pointed edge that sank deeply into the realm of veins and inflicted unspeakable pain that lasted for months. I stared when I saw the back of some of these victims, while some were carrying unhealed peppering sores that oozed blood right inside the fire, hissing like pine trees in agony, but with sweating unreserved in his duty. Not lending a sympathetic ear to these precious but lost souls, in one of his mocking utterances, the demon addressed a lady in utter despair who was learned to have died as a petrol station attendant. If in life you spurned strive to enter at the straight gate, should you here again say no to the command of the Master, whose part you followed in life, whose interests you shared until death? A Lady Pierce would spear in hell. After that statement, in rage, he gripped his dagger and with thick biceps thrust clean the pointed edge into the ribs of the lady. Just as the iron was withdrawn as if it were a plug, her blood gushed out. Being in the state of coma, her screaming began to die away gradually as she helplessly sank into the flame. Among several other things, I heard the angel said was 2 possibilities exist in life. There abide good and bad, truth and error, past and present, life and death, reward and punishment. 2 men strive to win a man, to rule a man, the Son of the Most High and our Master. 2 lifestyles are possible for embracing by man: living for the Holy One, or living in the opposite direction of the light. Be that as it may, no man is free, no son of man is without a ruling power, either the Dark One or the Immaculate, wherewith U.S. is the majority. To man, the truth is bitter, and the narrow road is rugged. Men tend to seek for ease, many can't endure. Such are those who bathe my feet with tears. Though they plead, they only plead with the colony that can't be forgiven and neither forgives any. Once here is forever here. Once in Celestial City is forever there. But only few have the courage it takes to go there and the whiteness of heart the city demands. A lady in hell, due to Fornication, since the departure of the angel that brought me. Thousands of people had entered throughout the same and trotted down into hell, but the place remained as spacious as ever. While I was yet trapped down by this awful scene, I discovered, that one of the hell inmates was drawing a lit bit closer to the bank. She crawled like a fly near the bound set between hell bank and the land. Alan, Alan, shouted the lady. I was shocked to the route to hear my name in hell. I didn't recognize on the time who the person was, because the face was marred and disfigured by the fire. The skin was blackened by the flame and littered by sores. Who? A lady in hell. Who are you? Asked with great inquisitiveness. She shouted again. Ellen Baum-Kubos. I am Rita, your hostel mate in the grammar school. Oh, I'm hungry. Plese, help me. I was flabbergasted seeing Rita in hell. Rita in hell? No, it must be a dream. But Rita died a good Christian. Soliloquized all these questions right on the same spot. To cut a long story short, human feelings gripped me, and I thought I could help her out of that predicament. Thus, I took a step to move to her, but my legs were too heavy for me to lift. I looked around for my friendly angel again. He was nowhere to be found. Rita, why are you here? You are a child of God. Why did you miss heaven? We organized concerts, carol, and quiz competitions in our school fellowship, and you didn't disappoint God. You were very good at sword drill and impromptu speech. Why? How? I sobbed out these statements. Yes, I did all that in the grammar school, Alan. She replied, but later in life, in 2 months to my graduation in the university, I yielded to a sinful affair with a boy at home during a short break. I thought of repenting in the campus chapel when the school resumed, but on returning from home, I had a motor accident. The next thing I discovered was that I found myself in the gate over there, and an angel asked me to go to the left road, which ends in this place, she revealed. Oh, Rita, why did you allow this after all the evangelism in the boarding house, choruses, and prayer meetings? What were you doing till your flesh inflicted this temptation on you and conquered? I asked with lament. While I was lamenting over this tragic scene, the fire, as red as it were, erupted like a volcano around the place she was. Immediately, she sank. I was afraid of God right there. I didn't see Rita again throughout my vision. For over 30 minutes, I was recapitulating the exploit we did in our secondary school days. I considered the heroic effort of Rita Udo in the school Christian programs. This was an exceptionally talented sister in song and extraordinary, gifted lady in leadership and organization. The concert goers of those days used to comment that Rita's voice made our concerts rent in Esa Lorando and Rolantando like cherub choirs in heaven. She could motivate a lot. I reflected on her exercised influence, both to soften the hearts of the hardened students and polish the character of the immature ones. When I considered the incalculable mass of suffering from her parents and persecution from our teachers she independently went through, I cried. It loomed large on me that the race is not to the swift. Ecclesiastes 9:11. I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill. But time and chance happeneth to them all. A young girl in hell, due to witchcraft. In a moment of time, a girl reared her head, yet in this same horror. I was shocked, seeing such a teenager of about 13 in hell. What is her offense? I asked myself. I beckoned her to come. She waited and waited until she came nearer. Young girl, why are you here? I asked. A girl in hellfire. Sir, please give me water. Water is my dire need now. I've been thirsty since 1932 when I came in here. Okay, please, just a small quantity. Oh. She sobbed out her suffering. I know God is ever faithful in his judgment, yet I was curious to know what offense had that young soul that warranted her sentence to that horrible place. Why are you here? I asked again. It was my mother, Kay. She initiated me into witchcraft at 6. But before I reached 12 and died, I had killed 720 people and had become a registered witch in the spirit world, she explained. But a companion, she continued, who has been here since 1620, told me that the punishment here is eternal and the condition is permanent. Is that true? She asked. I pitied her condition. I couldn't answer yes or no than to say, she must be right, R-I-I-G-H-T. She screamed. As she screamed thus, the flame was hard on her again, and she began to sink down gradually. I looked and looked at her again until she vanished from my sight. I was sore afraid at this. A woman in hell due to unforgiveness. In a couple of minutes again, I saw another person, a late deaconess of my church, who died of arthritis when I was 16. I began to feel that I might soon find myself in hell too, if that woman of high reputation could be there. I remembered that when late Mrs. Emily Adiambo died, my church, Cornerstone Mission, did all within her capacity to appreciate the charity so nobly and constantly practiced by this woman. By the masses, she was regarded as an incarnation of virtue and paradigm of philanthropy. She responded to needs of friends and foes, as if I had never cried in my life. Tears rolled down my cheek with the question, who can be saved? Ain't a woman in hellfire? Ma'am, why did you come here? Did you miss your way? I sobbingly asked. Ellie Lynn, thus is what unforgiving spirit has for me as a reward, she replied. Unforgiving spirit. But you were a deaconess. You mean you didn't forgive somebody inside or outside the church? I asked. It was discovered in the book of record that all my life was pleasant to God, except the misunderstanding that happened between the choir master and me. By and large, I was older than he, and as such, I was expecting him to come and apologize. At least courtesy demands for that. I was in this malice when death struck that same month, she explained. The fire became hotter than before as she was talking. A-L-N. Please help me plead. I have forgiven him in my heart, she pleaded. I never knew when I began to cry too. My two eyes were shut in sorrow. I couldn't behold the woman on whose tombstone we wrote the epitaph. Late Madame Emily Ediambo, née Beatrice, a loyal Christian soldier who courageously fought for the holy cause, carried her cross and kept the sword unsheathed. Your gentle spirit broke the bond of death when you were called home to rest in perfect peace till the morning of resurrection. Her remains weren't taken to the mission cemetery on the left side while entering our town, but was buried in the churchyard in honor of her unalloyed Christian commitment, in the churchyard that Friday evening of her burial ceremony. The minister in charge read 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 39 to 57 with resounding farewell words. Good mother, goodbye till we meet again beside the river of life. We waved our hands to her remains and solemnly sang the first 2 stanzas of the heart touching him for her interment forever with the Lord. Amen. So let it be. Life from the dead is in that word. 'Tis immortality. Here in the body pent, absent from him, roam yet nightly pitch my moving tent, a day's march nearer home. My Father's house on high, home of my soul, how near at times to faith's foreseeing eye thy golden gates appear. Then my spirit faints to reach the land I love, the bright inheritance of saints. Jerusalem above. But friends, instead of the river of life, she's in hunger, peril, and untold pain. I dropped down and strove to pray, but I couldn't actually say a word. To my awful amazement, before I opened my eyes, Madame Emily was gone. The tide of hell had rolled on her and swallowed her up like Rita. Madame Emily, where are you? I shouted. The savage master had swept her away from my sight. 14 years have passed in hunger and thirst, and no remembrance was given to her religious activities. It became glaring to me that in a moment a sin can qualify one for hell. Friends, while Madame Emily is in torment, thirst, and hunger in the other side, Here in the world, my church is busy marking her remembrance year by year. It is a pity. A young man in hell due to stealing. When I had spent about 8 minutes beside the horrible place called hell, I couldn't cry again. I became so weak that I was seeking for release from my bondage of immobility. Suddenly, I sighted a horrible scene in a distance of some meters away. Her remains weren't taken to the mission cemetery on the left side while entering our town, but was buried in the churchyard in honor of her unalloyed Christian commitment. In the churchyard that Friday evening of her burial ceremony, the minister in charge read 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 39 to 57 with resounding farewell words. Good mother, goodbye till we meet again beside the river of life. We waved our hands to her remains and solemnly sang the first 2 stanzas of the heart touching him for her interment forever with the Lord. Amen. So let it be. Life from the dead is in that word. 'Tis immortality. Here in the body pent, absent from him, roam, yet nightly pitch my moving tent, a day's march nearer home. My Father's house on high, home of my soul. How near, at times, 2 fates, foreseeing I thy golden gates appear. Then my spirit faints to reach the land I love, the bright inheritance of saints, Jerusalem above. But friends, instead of the river of life, she's in hunger, peril, and untold pain. I dropped down and strove to pray, but I couldn't actually say a word. To my awful amazement, before I opened my eyes, Madam Emily was gone. The tide of hell had rolled on her and swallowed her up like Rita. Madam Emily, where are you? I shouted. The savage master had swept her away from my sight. 14 years have passed in hunger and thirst, and no remembrance was given to her religious activities. It became glaring to me that in a moment a sin can qualify one for hell. Friends, while Madam Emily is in torment, thirst, and hunger in the other side. Here in the world, my church is busy marking her remembrance year by year. It is a pity. A young man in hell due to stealing. When I had spent about 8 minutes beside the horrible place called hell, I couldn't cry again. I became so weak that I was seeking for release from my bondage of immobility. Suddenly, I sighted a horrible scene in a distance of some meters away. Demon torturing a man in hell. A young man of about 30 years of age was struggling with a demon of torment. The demon kept on torturing him while he cried and screamed. He was stricken whenever he wept, received a blow if he sobbed. His tears despised, his supplication vain. Last, he waited to a closer range where he could hear my voice.